Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Song Tripping. My name's Jim, and I'm joined by my friend Ken, my fellow music aficionado. Ken, welcome back to Song
Oh,
Tripping.
it's nice to be back, Jim.
We've been
Especially
meeting.
to talk about what we're going to talk about.
I know we've been meaning to do this show for months, and just life got in the way, and we didn't get around to it. But we're going to talk about this album, Mirrors by Peggy Lee, which came out in 1975, produced by Lieber and Stoller, who were famous songwriting team. What were some of their big hits, Ken? Jailhouse Rock, I think.
Yeah, they go back to songs from Elvis, but they've had quite a career uh, for all sorts of people doing their material. And for me, this album was a really good fit of artist and songwriter.
And it's not what you might expect from Lieber and Stoller. So we'll get into the style of the music pretty soon. Um, the album, where does this fit in the career of Peggy Lee, Ken? Like, where was she at this point, 1975?
Well, she wasn't doing very well on the charts. She had had an album out a year before with one of the songs was written and produced by Paul McCartney. It was called Let's Love. And I think, she had in 1969 a very big comeback with a song called Is That All There Is? And that is a Lieber Stoller song. And it became, a Peggy Lee classic. Interestingly enough, though, 5 or 6 years ago, Bette Midler covered Is That All There Is? It's interesting to hear the difference in approach that the two singers do to that song. But anyways, so there was that connection with Lieber and Stoller. And in the mid-70s, they got together as the two of them plus Peggy Lee to do Mirrors.
And this was the album that I guess they put this out after the single had done so well, right?
Right, yeah.
And it's on Capitol. This was 1969.
Right.
Right. So she had done the album, looking at her discography here. So after Is That All There Is, she had a 1970 album called Bridge Over Troubled Water, and also Make It With You. 71, she did Where Did They Go? 72, Norma Dolores Ekstrom from Jamestown, North Dakota.
That album we ought to talk about sometime. You may not know that album, but I think you'd like it.
Yeah, I don't have the vinyl of it, but I can always stream it. And then 74 was Let's Love, as you talked about. And then this one came out in 1975, Mirrors. So it's a late career. Actually, it was on A&M, so it's a post-Capitol Records album for her. And how did it do on the charts?
It didn't. It was, I guess you'd say, commercially not very successful. She tried in her stage, she was still performing then and all that. And she tried to work, songs from Mirrors into the act, and they didn't really seem, or at least she felt they didn't really seem to go over. But, sometimes I feel like audiences want certain things, and if you do something a little different or what they're not expecting, they may not be so responsive. But, I don't think she continued to do much of the material from Mirrors. After that, it didn't, I hate the phrase catch on, but whatever, but it stands for what it is as far as I'm concerned. And
right, and it went straight into the cutout bins. I mean, my copy that I picked up, you see the little cutout there. That's a sign that it didn't do too well. And there was one single that was released. Some Cats Know was the A side, and I Remember the B side, and that also did not chart. And this was one of her last singles, according to Wikipedia.
But not one of her last albums.
No, not at all. Right, right. So let's get into some differences between the digital version and the vinyl version. You have the CD copy of this, correct? Do you want to hold that up?
Yeah, I can hold that right up there.
And there's one important difference in the track listings.
Well, because Is That All There Is was a Lieber and Stoller song that was such a big hit for her. And these songs on Mirrors are Lieber and Stoller songs, and she's singing them. It kind of does make sense to combine. It's not like the sound is so different that it's a glaring kind of mismatch, and I don't feel that way at all. In fact, they almost should have done the album and just had it on there. What would have that have hurt, you know? But if you like Is That All There Is, it kind of is a nice prelude to what's going to come with the rest of the tracks on Mirrors. And it is done in order. The after Is That All There Is, it's the exact order as was done on the vinyl album.
And I listened to it this morning on Tidal. Tidal has the digital version equivalent to your CD copy. I listened to it in hi-fi quality, and I thought it was seamless. It was actually nice to start the album with Is That All There Is. It's an orchestrated number. Randy Newman, by the way, arranged and conducted that number. And then it just flows pretty nicely into the first track.
Well, that's one thing I like about Mirrors, just as an album. I find it very cohesive. And I mean, it's going to be cohesive partly because you got the two writers, you know, they're the ones that are doing all the songs. But I like the choice of how they line those up on the record. And the album ends with this wonderful song that just, I think, is an ideal ender for the album.
Yeah, we're going to get to that real soon when we do our track by track rundown. Talk about a little bit about the themes and the mood of this album. I think it's very distinctive. You're actually, you know, already starting to talk about that with how it's orchestrated and so forth. And by the way, most of the songs were arranged and conducted by Johnny Mandel, who's no slouch either. But can you talk about like just the themes, mood, atmosphere you're picking up on these songs by Lieber and Stoller?
Well, I wouldn't call it like, quote, a concept album. One thing that does kind of come out to me, that there seems to be a lot of songs that are either dreamlike. The most clear example of that would be A Little White Ship. But even beyond something that seems particularly like that song, themes of memory,
yes.
Themes that are dream, where we're not tethered to a traditional kind of reality. We're in almost a different space. Songs like I Remember, but is she remembering it like as if in a dream, or is she remembering situations just from thinking about them? But so that seems to be kind of a part of what's going on. I would also say, you know, by the time she did Mirrors, she was no longer, you know, a 1940s young kind of a popular singer of that time. Now we were in 1975 now, and songs that reflect either someone aging or thinking about experiences from youth, but maybe from an older perspective.
Yeah, that jives with my list that I made here on themes and mood. Aging came up. This is an album for middle-aged to older folks, I think, who are really going to appreciate it. Memory as a reflection on the past, the whole theme of reflection, because that's like in the title, mirrors, like a mirror reflects.
That's
right?
very, yeah, that's a great insight.
Right, and reflection on your past, and how faithful is that reflection as you look into the past. But then also this theme of mimesis, you know, in aesthetic theory, we talk about art as imitation, like the mirror is a reflection of that. And I sense a lot of these songs, and again, they're all Lieber Stoller songs, this themes of like artifice, theatricality, performativity, sort of preparing a face to meet the face. She's in the role
of the chanteuse.
Yes.
And presenting a persona.
Right. Yeah. And you see a lot of that in these lyrics, I think, which we'll get into on the track by track breakdown. But I think there is some like interesting motifs going on here. Let's go track by track here. And by the way, if you get the album on vinyl, which is very easy to find, you do get the lyrics on the gatefold. And I'd like this picture of Peggy too on that side.
She looks like she's in mist.
Yeah, exactly. In a dream world.
Yeah, right? Very much.
So first track is Ready to Begin Again, Manya's song. Actually, the first track on the CD is That All There Is, right?
Right.
Do you want to talk about that one real quickly?
Well, I mean, just for a second, I mean, it was a very big hit for her, and it brought her back. So, and she performed it regularly on TV and in her shows and all of that. But the debate about that song it is always like, well, how pessimistic or sad really is it meant to be? I don't think she saw it as totally just this, well, if that's all there is, life isn't really worth much. You may as well just get drunk. It is a theory. But others have read it as like, well, at the end of the song, she wants to go on.
Right.
Like
Right.
when I'm breathing my last, is that all there is? Well, that's not negative about life. There's something in life that is still worth wanting to be a part of.
Wanting more out of life. And,
Yeah.
but it is also a lyric that's about, like, from the perspective of someone who's older. So that's why I think it fits into this lineup really
Very
nicely.
much so. I agree.
So on Ready to Begin Again, we have an interesting lyric about, she's putting her teeth in the glass and her hair is on the, like, where is the hair? It's in a drawer in the hall. And she's literally like making herself up, right? To
Yeah,
go out and face the world again.
Yeah, becoming Peggy Lee. Or as she would have probably preferred, Miss Peggy Lee.
Yeah. And
I mean, there's your aging theme right there, right? Establishing it right at the beginning. But I find that song, I think it's meant to be kind of, it's bittersweet, it's sad we've come to this place. Believe me, I understand. But on the other hand, it's humorous.
Yes.
It's like the singer is making fun of herself as she's going through what almost seems like an absurd ritual of getting up in the morning.
Right. And for all of us who have to get up and go to work each day, I can identify with this. And I think of Elliot, to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet, right?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and she's kind of doing that. But when she does it and it kind of works out okay, she's quite all right with herself in the song,
And I like how inclusive it is in the very last verse. It reads, "I'm ready to begin again, looking fresh and bright, I trust, ready to begin again, as everybody must." We're all in that boat.
Yeah.
Moving on, Some Cats Know. This was the single. I really like this number. It's sort of a slow swing. Feels like a little bit of a throwback to the old Peggy.
There's a bit of kind of the sultry Peggy Lee in that one. Well, and the lyrics too, it seems to be about the difference between some people who make love very quickly and just kind of get through it, as opposed to others who take their time and are much more sensuous. And some cats know. And I guess some cats don't,
Right. And I really like the bass line in this song. Like, if you listen to it, listen to the bass. The guy's just been phenomenal on it. But real nice vocal by her. Moving on, I've got them Feeling Too Good Today blues.
That's another one that I find, brings in an element of humor into the album. We normally don't think of the blues as, we're feeling good, but the Lieber and Stoller kind of elide those two kind of worlds together, and then she kind of negotiates it for us.
Yeah, it's a clever little song. And just the music on this album, it's an acquired taste, I would say. It took me a few listens to really like sink into it. Now I really like it. But
that may have been one of the problems commercially with it.
Right.
Not everything comes to us in top 40 radio just like, bam, now I like it,
Right. This isn't like 70s pop at all. It's more like cabaret music or like art song, sort of like songs that would fit into a Fellini film almost. Like it could be the soundtrack to like an international film. It has that kind of edge of the world, sort of dreamy cabaret feel.
Yeah, it does. In some ways, I would say there aren't many albums that can do quite what this one does because of that. Well, also because she's a great artist. That
Right.
Doesn't hurt either.
Right. Moving on, A Little White Ship. You had mentioned this earlier. as a sort of a dreamy track.
Well, I think The White Ship is a pill,
Mm.
and you get on board the little white ship, come aboard, as she sings in the song. And then there's the up and down motion. It sounds like you're on a ship, literally going up and down with the waves. But I view that as just, well, there's an introduction to the dreams again, but also the sense of sleep is an entirely different reality. When we're sleeping and we're dreaming, it feels real, but in one level it isn't. It's just things from the mind and the imagination.
And the side one, if you're listening to the vinyl, closes out with Tango, which is one of my favorite
I
tracks.
love that song. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your interpretation of this one, Tango?
It's about Ramon Navarro, the silent movie actor, who had picked up, evidently, well, in the song it's called Seafaring Trash, but it didn't end well. They robbed and murdered him. And it's kind of, the tango is this dance that's done between the assailant and the one who's being brutalized, essentially. And all in the context of, kind of a quest for romantic love. I mean, and she does it, it's like a poem. The first, minute and a half, it's a recitational. And she's reciting it like a poem before it kind of moves into the more musical kind of part of the song.
Doesn't it start with the tango music instrumental?
Oh, yeah.
And then she does the recitation, and the tango music comes back, but it sounds like it's playing off a phonograph in the background.
That moment where it's like the needle is stuck.
Right.
That's
and then she
amazing.
actually says, over it plays, over it plays, over
and
it plays.
That might have been actually when Navarro was murdered, when the cops came in there. That might have actually been part of what happened. There was the needle that, these were old record players back then, and just playing that same thing over and over.
It's I think it's a really poetic lyric, and like the imagery is just phenomenal. Like it's very evocative. I really love it.
Well, one should know that Peggy Lee herself wrote poetry. In the new, there's been, I guess it was a year ago, a new release of her autobiography came out, and one of the things they added to it was a whole sheaf of her poems. And so I think her connection with poetry was a vital thing. And she reads the beginning part of Tango there very, very adroitly.
Oh yeah, for sure. One side note on Tango, I mentioned this to you before, Ken. In '74, Lieber and Stoller were producing Procol Harum. They produced one Procol Harum album called Procol's Ninth. They offered the song Tango to Procol Harum as a possible one that they would want to record, and they turned it down. And they said, well, can we do I keep forgetting is the one they chose by Lieber and Stoller to cover on that album, which is a much older song by them. I think
it might have been interesting to hear Procol Harum.
I think I can see why they offered it to them. It would be cool to hear Procol do it. I think it would have fit their style. We move on to side two, Professor Hauptmann's Performing Dogs. This one has a circus carnival feel to it.
Well, I wouldn't say it's exactly autobiographical, but before she was famous and back in North Dakota where she grew up, she worked in a carnival. So, I have a feeling she had a kind of affinity for, the world, and it's a show world, just like show business in that way. And you're the one who calls out, and you kind of try to get people's interest in what's going on, and look at the performing dogs. And
yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the Randy Newman song Simon Smith and the Amazing Dancing Bear. But it's a clever little ditty, it's fun, but there's a little bit, when I love the grand finale, and there might be a little bit more going on in the lyric where it says, for a grand finale, these dogs are going to now dress up as the like Revolutionary War soldiers, in 1776.
Well, there's an absurd, but
That's absurd. Yeah.
remember when you and I did our circus show, songs about the circus? There is something in a way wonderfully absurd about circuses and carnivals. They really do, almost like dreams. They bounce reality on their ear. I mean, so you can dress up dogs to look like Revolutionary War soldiers.
I don't know if like Lieber and Stoller are making some kind of commentary there about soldiers and dogs or something. I'm not sure, but it does fit because it's one of these theatrical songs. There's a lot of songs that are theatrical on the album.
I think it's also humorous too, but
yeah, it's fun. The Case of MJ, not so much a humorous song. That's the next one.
oh, that is not.
Mary Jane, can you go out
Yeah.
and play?
A story of this girl who has, it seems that the implication is she has some sort of difficult issue that she can't get through that involves her father.
Maybe abuse.
Yeah, and interesting, she's called Mary Jane, but the song is The Case of MJ. And when you call it The Case of MJ, it seems like very clinical.
Mhm.
But then you put a name on her, and it's and the song, Peggy Lee does it almost like she's a little girl herself, Mary Jane, and but what she's singing about is profoundly sad.
And the refrain is haunting. How old were you when your father went away?
Yeah, and it comes back more than once in the song, like she can't escape that. It's like the needle that goes around in the tango, on the record that keeps repeating over and over. Well, for Mary Jane, that, she can't get beyond that question.
It's almost a question that a therapist or a social worker might ask.
Yeah, you feel like someone who keeps bringing it, but you're at a wall. She can't break free of it.
Right. Next is the song, a very short, lovely song, I Remember, which was the B-side of the single. Very simple lyric. It's almost like a tanka.
Yeah, I know. It's like 5 or 6 lines and they're short.
I remember when you loved me. I lie on my bed, hands under my head. I remember when you loved me. That's a song where the whole, it's you read between the lines, and that's,
it may be short, but it seems to tell an entire story.
Less is more.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Really lovely.
I also feel that just like the song earlier on, The Little White Ship, it feels to me very dreamlike, and after The Case of MJ, there's this sense of someone being lost in remembering and something that, had happened, but ended sadly.
Next is the song Say It, which starts, was this a recitation? Does it start with? I'm not sure. Say, you are not my Galahad, nor I your Guinevere. I am not in love with you, nor you with me, my dear. But say it, say I love you. Right.
Yeah, like, well, there's something really honest about that song, we're not going to just bullshit around, it's
let's pretend.
Well, but let's be honest about it, and that it would be better for us if we didn't have to, make up things. Just say it, and,
right,
and
say
that's
it.
what I think the title is like that. And if we say it, maybe it won't be so difficult, all right, this is where we are, this is who we are, this is what's happening.
And the song closes with this lyric, say it, say I love you, though it isn't true. Say it, say I love you, let me make believe you do. So there's that make believe, the pretense, the performance of love, right? But that's,
yeah, and coming right after I Remember.
Yes, that's a nice pairing.
You loved me, and then you move into this where, there isn't love. That's not a part of what's going on between these two people.
And we close the album with what I know is your favorite song, Longings for a Simpler Time.
It's one of my all-time favorite songs.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore it.
This is on the theme of nostalgia, isn't it? Looking back, memory.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of a kick in the face to, oh, the good old days, weren't they all just so wonderful? If only it could be. I know a whole lot of people that have this kind of rose-colored view of this past. And you know, if you would look a little deeper into that past, you might not see that it was all quite so wonderful. The mirror looks a little deeper. You see a little bit more the more you look into the mirror. And at the end of the song, you know, the last lines are, "We're longing for a simpler time that never was."
Yeah, that's a heavy duty line
Yeah.
to finish it off.
If that line had not been there, though, that song would have just been kind of sentimental goop,
Yeah.
because it would have been just kind of a cataloging of these things that we associate with earlier times that were supposedly better. But those last two lines there, suddenly everything's kind of turned upside down. The mirror is kind of turned upside down.
Yeah, yeah.
We still have to look at it.
So that's the track by track listing. Hope you enjoyed those reviews. I did a digital versus vinyl shootout this morning, and I listened to it in the headphones. So I streamed it on Tidal in CD quality, and then I listened to the vinyl. And I have to say, I think I prefer the digital sound wise. There's a more dynamic range, more clarity. It was somehow a little more involving. This vinyl copy is not too bad. It's a little noisy, but it's not too bad. It's like a VG pressing maybe. It's okay. It's nice, but I think the digital sounds great. And I did actually like the addition of "Is That All There Is" as track 1. Like, I thought that added to the album. One thing I would say though is this album is a lot easier to find. The vinyl, you can find this in the bargain bins pretty easily for $1 or $2. And I love the packaging. I mean, look at that mirror cover. You can actually see me there reflected. So you can.
Well, yeah, I just like to add to that you know, because of like playing CDs in the car, I like the digital just for a certain kind of convenience. Or when I'm in my office and I just can flip it into the tray there and there it is. However, you know, I remember when I picked up the album and I bought it, it wasn't in a bin. It was actually when it was out. Oh, yeah. And look at that. The cover's fabulous. And here's the CD. Well, yeah, that's it. But it misses everything. You know, I mean, the silver, the reflectivity, the CD just can't cover that, you know. I mean,
plus you get the gatefold.
Yeah.
So you get the nice picture of Peggy. Where is she? There she is. Lyrics on the facing. You do get the lyrics with the CD, of course. On Tidal, you get the lyrics to some of the songs, but not all of them. But my recommendation for folks would be go out and buy the vinyl because it's so cheap and you get the packaging, which is wonderful. But the digital sounds great. So like I would probably just listen to the digital, but look at the packaging, you know.
Well, the only thing is, if you buy the vinyl, try and, as best you can guess, get a really decent copy.
Yes.
This is an album that I don't think is improved by hisses and pops and ticks. No,
which is why I think I prefer the digital, because it's so clean.
And she's so clear in the digital that way. You don't have the distraction of ticks and pops and all of that.
Now, if you're looking to get the CD that Ken has, you might have a little bit of trouble finding it. It's also pretty expensive. If you compare prices on Discogs, you might have to spend $20, $30 to get a copy of this album on CD. But streaming, if you're a subscriber to one of the streaming networks, you're going to get it for free then. The other thing I would add is there's another CD release, which is also available on Tidal, called Peggy Lee Sings Lieber and Stoller. And it came out on Hippo Select in 2005. And it includes 2 bonus tracks from the Mirrors album sessions that didn't make it onto the original album. And those tracks are Don Juan and I Ain't Here. So if you want to get the full, you know, package, you might want to add that release to your collection. It's called Peggy Lee Sings Lieber and Stoller.
Well, it was a great kind of artistic combination, Lieber and Stoller and Peggy Lee. I think, you know, sometimes an artist finds a songwriter, an arranger, or it's simpatico. They merge in interesting ways that I think she was able to bring something to those songs that I wonder if Lieber and Stoller even knew was there, because there was such a energy that happened with that recording.
I think this album is ripe for rediscovery and reassessment, and we're going to be the first people on YouTube to like, we're gonna go viral with this.
And well, we should.
Like, we're ahead of the curve. So with this flop of an album is really one worth checking out. We both say that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, since I bought it when it was out, you know, it was one of those albums that it has stayed with me from 1975. How many years ago would that be? 47 years now. I'm never far away from it, you know, and it's not the kind of album that maybe like at every moment of the day you might want to hear. You almost have to be in a space where you're ready for what the album does. Of course, you could say that about so many albums too.
Yeah, it's a moody album. It's not, you know, it's not a party album. If I had company over, it would be a real buzzkill. Like, check this out. No, it's like more of a rainy.
Not for me. That sounds like my kind of party.
It's more of like a rainy day, sort of drinking at home alone, sort of moody type of album. It's extreme.
If I can just bring in one other album that isn't about Lieber and Stoller, it's not about Peggy Lee, but maybe has some feel that you're talking about, it would be Sinatra's Watertown album.
We should review that soon.
Yeah, which just last year, I think it was, came out again, and with bonus tracks and an absolutely fantastic booklet that really some great interviews about that. And that album has, you know, a real cohesive quality to it that, and it's funny, that was Frank in 1970 and this is Peggy in 75. They admired each other's work, by the way, very much.
Yeah, we'll have to review Watertown for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken. This was like a nice deep dive into Peggy Lee's Mirrors album. Ken, by the way, is the host of Obscure Oldies, which airs on Saturday nights at 6 p.m. It's a streaming radio show on the Widecast Radio Network. This being a Saturday, October 1st, I assume maybe you're going to be...
I'm going to brave the raindrops to come in and do the show, www.tunein.com. And then you just in the search bar type in Widecast, and that should get you right in.
That's great. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you like the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. We sure do appreciate it. And we'll be back hopefully soon with another episode of Song Tripping. Thanks, Ken.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.